Adam, it's good to see you again. So today we'll be talking about a topic that's very near and dear to all our enterprises, and that's really how to leverage data to its full potential. That's really been a hot topic over the last 10 years since digital transformation has started. We'll probably open the topic up from more than just connected facilities, but really talking about foundationally sound data-driven enterprises and how that can support future digital ambitions to connected assets as well as facilities. So without further ado, let's meet our panelist. We'll start off with a quick round of introductions, just your name, your company's line of business, and your role within the company. We'll start off with you, Shin.
Thanks, Udayan. Hello, everyone. I'm Ishin dialing in from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm currently the head of data strategy, enterprise data unit within PETRONAS. So we are a dynamic global energy group with presence in over 50 countries. And I look forward to sharing with you more on what it takes to be enterprise ready in the data space and enabling future data initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Shin. Thanks for joining us all the way from Kuala Lumpur. We'll move on with Ibrahim. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and your role.
Thank you, Udayan. So I'm Ibrahim, the Director for Digital Transformation in Manufacturing globally for Celanese. Celanese is a chemicals and specialty materials company with manufacturing sites, 34 manufacturing sites across the globe, across several continents and countries. And we are in the middle of developing and driving an exciting digital manufacturing journey, which is grounded in a strong data foundation and the right framework to achieve that.
Very good. Welcome aboard. Raj, on to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Raj Mutha, part of Flutura Solutions. We provide digital solutions to all the manufacturing assets, oil and gas and pharma, and also steel and paper industry as well. But big focus is on oil and gas for us. We have worked with multiple refineries and chemical plants and try to use the data to unlock value for our customers and made them successful. We have a group of data science engineers and subject matter experts in our organization who focus on creating the value and thereby bring it together. So we'll look at that a little bit later in the next few minutes. Thanks.
Raj, thanks for joining us. That sounds very insightful indeed. And last but not least, Oleg, tell us about what's happening in your world.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining. My name is Oleg Schkoda. I'm Senior Director with Lumos Digital. Lumos Digital is a combination of Lumos technology, which is well known in the licenses and process world for refinery petrochem, and TCG Digital, which is a data integration platform providing data solution in various industry, from the oil and gas, pharmaceutical, a little bit like Flutura, manufacturing, airlines, and various. But Lumos Digital, the beauty of it is that it's the combination of the data expertise as well as the process expertise. And I heard a lot this morning already about hybrid. That's where it comes to hybrid solution, where we are not only doing data as an expert, but we also use the underlying process to understand what we do.
Fantastic. Oleg, let's stay with you for a bit here and let's dive a little bit deeper. Tell us how you're driving kind of data initiatives and value for your clients with your transformation efforts.
Well, it's that's a good question. I mean, the part of the panel here, we got quite a few points, and I'd like to address a couple of them. But I think something that was said this morning, and I think it was Juan Pedro from Repsol, is that data is at the center of everything we do, as we know. But first of all, not all data is good. Some people say, yeah, we need to have as much data as possible. But if you don't have good data, you won't have good insight. And the data is only there to just help you and provide you insight in understanding how to do things better. So if you got the wrong type of data, or the data is not clean enough to be able to understand what you need to be supported with, then you may have the wrong insight that makes you do the wrong decision. So today we got lots of data. In some cases, there's also a question of the quality of the data. But I think one thing which is important when I start talking to my clients is not just how much data you got, but how you're going to integrate that data, how you're going to aggregate that data, which is a key, because to be able to have a very strong ML AI solution, you need the data to be clean and also the data to be powerful. To mean by that is sometimes when you got a data set of 100 data, maybe only 80 of these data will give you the right insight. And if you keep on using 100 rather than the 20 that really makes sense, you're going to use an awful lot of space. Computational power as well is going to be heavy, and it's going to really make everything go slow and more difficult. So I think the data quality is important. Always more data is useful, but be careful and know when you need to say no to some of the data. That's going to be more noise than real value. So I think that's very important. When it comes to integration, real-time data and the smart technology, today we see more and more of visual recognition and all sorts of images and streaming and video which are used for real-time solution. This is a big challenge for most of the data company. And this is something that I'm very pleased to know we do very well in TCG Digital and Lumos Digital. But my point here is we got an awful lot of data, which is today visual data. But what we're going to have in the next 3 to 5 years is something that we don't know. So you need to be extremely well prepared to integrate not just the data that you know today, but the data that the smart technologies of tomorrow will generate. And we don't know what it's going to look like. I remember in the 90s when I got my first digital camera, that was a Sony Mavica. Maybe some people will remember that, but that was one of the little square camera, and the size of the picture, a pixel of a P probably, was about 200K. And it was a great picture. We're very happy to use it and to make pictures of the family. But today, I mean, even an iPhone generates picture which has 1,000 times that much. So what's going to be the data we're going to receive in 5 years? Nobody knows. So what my point is, we need to be extremely strong in integrating and aggregating these data that we know today, but the data that we won't know later on. Another point on the preventive equipment failure, leveraging the data, that's quite interesting because, I mean, previously before joining Lumos Digital, I was with McKinsey and Company, and we did loads of digital transformation. We did loads of I would say renewable, but not only oil and gas and downstream. And we realized that when you go to reactive maintenance rather than preventive maintenance, it was costing almost 4.2 times more than normally. And that's the real issue, really. When you need to react and firefight all the time, you can't prevent properly, and you can't maintain your equipment at the top of the optimization, which is the next level after the monitoring. So the real issue is how can we use the right type of data to do a maintenance which is spot on to what your equipment needs. There's been loads of questions about fouling, about heat exchanger. All these equipment are extremely important to not only we need to have the right data, but we need to understand the process behind it. And that's where the hybrid question comes back. No, the beauty about Lumos Digital is that Lumos technology is a licensor on many processes around the world in refining and petrochem. And the fact that we are licensor is very important because we know the first principle. We know the physics behind every equipment that is working in a refining or a petrochem plant. And we integrate this with the data because a lot of times data providers are doing a fantastic job, but the last mile is really to understand what kind of insight the data will give you. And to understand that, what's better than the data that you get in terms of processes and how the process is supposed to work. When you got some sensors that are in your system, supposed to give you a temperature of 40 to 60 degrees, and if it reads 70 degrees, sometimes it's not highlighted. You're going to use that data when this data is totally wrong, and it's going to give you a big, massive error in the entire process. So again, knowing the first principle and putting this together with the data acquisition, I think is extremely important. And last but not least, in the last few minutes I think one of the points which was discussed briefly, but which is for me at the heart of the discussion I have with every one of my clients, is the ROI, the return on investment. Very often, today, it's extremely difficult, and I've seen with Flutura, it was a good point, it was well addressed. The return on investment is the key for the clients. They're very happy to start working with data. For some of them, it's very obscure and difficult because they either don't have the sensor, they don't have the data, or they don't know how to use the data. But when you start putting together some software, some projects of data preventive maintenance, data optimization or monitoring, they want to understand how much this new system that's going to cost $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million, how much is it going to bring me? And that's a big question, but to quantify this with clarity for your clients is extremely important. It will have an impact, we heard it, on not just the processes, but the people as well. Some people are worried that their job is at risk because we start using all these widgets, all these tablets to do things that they used to do before. So the change management in itself is extremely important. Ultimately, the ROI is key, but you can't minimize the impact it will have on the people. So this is really something that not just automation, but also optimization and monitoring will have on the people. So that's my first insight. I hope it's going to generate enough ideas to continue to discuss on this panel. But I'll keep it open for more questions in the next few minutes.
Oleg, that was great. I mean, you kind of came out of the gate just blazing in terms of the topic of data quality. I mean, you're talking so much about its significance. We often spend so much time talking about AI and ML and kind of the ROI that can bring, but without the foundational data quality, all that conversation is going to be challenged. And I come from the real-time world, the process safety world, where 5-6 years ago we were streaming all this data in. We're trying to make decisions and actionable insights on that data. And we quickly learned we had a way to go to making sure our data quality and almost like our enterprise data readiness was where it needed to be to really derive those insights we were looking for. So thank you so much for that. That was very compelling, and I think you made some really strong points right off the bat. Moving along, Raj, let's talk a little bit about what's happening with Flutura and kind of the digital transformation data efforts that you're driving there for your clients.
Thanks, Sadyam. If I can have my as the slides come up, I want to just share that I've worked with multiple refineries, petrochemical plants as an employee of Shell, and earlier in my career with Chevron, Phillips Chemicals, and Asmentech. And I've seen this journey at many different places. And I'll try to share some of my insights from there and how it relates with what we do at Flutura. So if we kind of look at what our mission is basically to unlock value by linking data with the plant and creating insights to improve operations, reduce maintenance, and make higher value products. We aim to make $1 billion value for our customers. We have achieved about 400 million so far, and this is by 2024. We are hoping we can do that. That's the big picture, and again, through some examples, I'll show what we have done and what's possible. These are some of the companies we have worked with, several well-known players here. Yep. And now going into very specific example on how we make this happen. So this is an place where we did implementation and try to bring data together. And again, acknowledging what we heard earlier, that data quality is important, absolutely very critical. Without that, we will end up getting to some wrong insights and wrong values. So checking that is the base thing. And once we have the data, then connecting the data with the models, we were able to pinpoint how the manufacturing was doing what it's supposed to do and provide insights on places where the corrections were possible. And this was started as a pilot with one line. And once it became successful and it gave them the value they were looking for, it got scaled to 144 manufacturing lines. This was a chemical plant, specialty chemical plant. And the scale up, this whole thing happened over a period of couple of years. And it's still a pretty aggressive pace and with a lot of aspects. And knowing what the pinch points are, what needs to get done to unlock value was the key part in this whole thing. Moving to another case study here. This was in a oil and gas midstream kind of um, plant in the Middle East area, and they had lots of compressors, very critical to their operation. And they were struggling to solve this problem for almost actually to see if we could help and do what's needed to kind of improve the performance. And by kind of pulling in right data, right structure, and right details, we were able to give them the action plan in few months, and that seemed to be the direction they were looking for. And with about over 90 compressors they had, we were able to improve efficiency by 8%, about 25 to 50,000 per compressor. And if you do for close to like 90, 100 compressors, that gives you the kind of value they had seen. And that's just in energy efficiency. If you translate that to the productivity, that's usually a factor of 5 to 10 of this number in terms of throughput increase in the plants. So that was a very large value for the end customer. Now, I've been a little bit kind of talking at a high level. Let me get into a little bit of detail on what exactly happens. How do we make these things work for our customer? So this slide gives you some of the details. This is a snapshot from our Cerebra platform where we implement the solutions. And just to give you some high level insight, this data pulls in data from the plants from all their sources. Usually, most of them have their data source, but any database for that matter. We pull in the SAP information. We also put in the design information of the compressors, compressor curves, surge curves, so on and so forth. And then we build different types of model. Again, the models depend on the type of the asset and the quality of data. Some compressors, for example, or any equipment for the matter, have very few, what we say, issues in the plant. They run consistently. So over the last 5 years, if it had only one place where the unit went down, that data may not have richness of giving us on how we model that part. So we focus on the good part of the data and use that to model and see for any deviations from the normal operations. Or if you have lots of those incidences happening across multiple equipments, then we are able to directly model those as well. And both ways we are able to get different insights. And the top line here, what we see is the health score of a specific equipment. So this is over a period of several months, and it seems to be running well. At some point, it starts seeing some degradation, and over a period of few months, actually, in this case, that it really went down. And the health score has been normalized 0 to 100. And we are able to start predicting, hey, by the time it comes to somewhere this region, they need to start paying attention and looking what's causing it. Now, if you have, let's say, 100 compressors in your plant or 100 equipments, looking at what went wrong is going to be really painful to the point that nobody will do it actually. and the equipment is still running. So do we react to it? The answer is, in most cases, the answer is no. But what we have done is created a way, so whenever an equipment shows that its score goes down, it kind of shows different aspects contributing that to that score going down. So this could be vibration sensors in this case. It could be the lube oil pressures, the discharge temperatures. This was a four-stage compressor. So we have shown all the four stages and the key variables which are actually contributing to the score getting low. And yellows are showing where it's seeing a little bit off from what's normal, and red where it says that, hey, there is something significantly wrong. And right around here range, when we put this analysis, it shows that the second stage discharge temperature has gone low and it's getting close to a failure. So they have time to see where the problem is, what needs to get to be done, what maintenance activity needs to be planned, and prepare for it and act on it before that compressor trips and causes a situation. So having data, having the knowledge, having the right kind of sensors telling you what to look for, this is what improves performance, keeps the uptime high, and generates value. And this is at an equipment level. We have tried to also do this at the plant level by integrating first principle models and try to unlock value. So same thing can be done at many different levels. And can I have the next slide, please? So this is a screen which gives a picture on the way we have approached when we go to the plant. A lot of times what we have seen is we have a lot of cool technology coming, and the technology is thrown into a data science problem, and then they look for what problem can it solve. We have seen this approach in some of the places I have looked at, and in general, if I scan the industry, our approach has been forget about technology. Let's start. Tell me what are the issues we are dealing with. What is it which doesn't make you reach the best value from your plans? We take that, then create a data science problem, and then see what things will solve. Does it need a first principle solution? If there is something available, let's use that. Does it need a neural net solution? Does it need a different way to attack it? What kind of data do we have? So those are the kind of things which we try to pull from business problem to defining the data science and then solving it. This ensures that we are tackling the right problem and generating value. And again, over time, we might realize, hey, this has some weaknesses in sensors or data quality. Those are absolutely directly looked on as we solve the business problem to solve it. And maybe if it's not needed, let's not put more stuff than we need. Next slide, please. This slide has several things listed here, and I think what we have tried to list is the kind of problems we can work with. And I'll not go through all the details, just the areas. So safety, reliability, and maintenance is one area. Process optimization. By using first principle models, we have integrated high-sys models with plant data and brought it to a place where an operator can do some what-if analysis on the fly and see what guidance does it give. We work with business problems related with quality assurance, and of course, again, it comes to operations. Sustainability is an area where slowly there is momentum, particularly in Europe, and we can put that data together and bring out what can be done to address some of those needs. And supply chain and strategy planning at next level, also these things can be integrated. I think some of these things are relatively mature, and some things are slowly building up. But there's a huge domain of problems which can be looked at, and each of the line items shows here what kind of problems which are feasible. So that's the high level picture. Next slide, please. uh, this is a picture which I have observed while working in the industry. So we have a solution for a specific problem by one software. So there is an APC, there is an LIMS solution, there is an SAP system, And for every new problem, I have a new system put in place, and they are pretty siloed. That's what we see in the left side. So there is a overall total high cost of ownership, and return on investment is not the best. If you're able to pull it all together as best as possible, again based on business needs and what makes sense and what's practical, if we integrate, break the silos, and try to look at the business problem in a holistic way, then the return on investment is better, as well as the total cost of ownership goes down. And again, data quality to uh, empirical models, first principle models, predictive models. Can we bring it all together in a platform? I mean, it's quite a bit to ask from any software, but is it feasible? I think our experience has been yes, it is feasible, and it's possible to tackle the solution, and we have seen the value in doing that. And I'm almost ready to conclude. Next slide, please. So with this, again, thanks for your attention, and happy to take on any discussions from here. Thank you.
Raj, thank you for your talk, your comments, your insight. Just a few takeaways. I really enjoyed it. I like the way that you guys are approaching kind of driving transformation efforts for your clients, really just focusing on a particular asset and really driving with speed and scale to increase value. A couple of the takeaways that I really resonated with me, one was around, I think industry at whole is trying to do this, is become much more proactive versus reactive in terms of kind of the predictive maintenance piece of what's happening. Certainly that's going to impact performance from a downtime perspective, but also help with your inventory of what you need and seeing that coming. And then I think the last comment that you made, I think, is really key. And I think all enterprises are really trying to do a better job of focusing on this. And that's really just making sure that the technology intersects with the business need. And if you do that, you're setting yourself up for a winning combination. So thank you for all that. Moving along, Ibrahim, excited to hear about what's happening at Celanese and kind of some of the stuff that you're working on. I believe digital twins is a focus for you, and that certainly resonates with kind of what we're doing from a connected facility perspective. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I have an interesting perspective on data strategy in general. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. One of the things that we've kind of learned throughout our journey over the last few years was, data in itself is not something that you basically start with or end with, right? What we need to really do is understand what is our digital transformation vision, and then work backwards from there, right? So we work backwards and say, okay, what capabilities do we need to enable that vision? And then the capabilities that we need to enable that vision, how does that interact with the right data, people, technology, and system? And then from that perspective, we say, okay, this is the sort of data we need. It needs to be structured. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be trusted to support all these use cases and capabilities if we are ever to achieve our vision that we put together. Now, what's interesting is, like, for Celanese, we have a vision and strategy around, so we want our manufacturing facilities and plants across the world to become more predictable, more self-optimizing, self-sustaining, and also become more remote and autonomous, right? So the more we think about our vision, it's practically impossible to achieve it if we don't have the right data backbone to support that. And another thing that we think about data is it's a very technology neutral concept for us, right? What we've seen in the past is whenever we talk about data, the conversations generally tend towards, integration, data lakes, data platforms. But really what's happening is, how do we create the right data definition or the right data structure to support the business capabilities or use cases to drive the transformation vision that we aspire for our company, right? And what that for us, what that means is it's really a technology neutral conversation and understanding, how is your data being created today? How is it being governed? How is it being owned and managed over its life cycle? And how do we get to a place where we can standardize on a common definition, so that if you have a global portfolio of manufacturing sites, that we're all communicating in the same language, right? So if you say that this document or this data set is a recip compressor, or it's a PNID, a sister site in China, in the US, or in Germany, we're classifying the same information in the same way if we truly want to build a global vision that supports all our manufacturing sites. So a lot of our focus has been in the area of, okay, what is the right data definition, the right data specification that all of our data from different processes that we do our business within or run our operating sites at, and the right systems that support that are following, so that we're creating the right data at the right source whenever it's governed or whenever it's created in the operating facilities. Part of the challenge is well, where sometimes the focus shifts is we get into a space where we become very reactionary, right? So what we say is, okay, we need the data, and we start putting in a lot of platforms that you do need, right? And then we start to mitigate and react to all the data that's coming in from an unstructured way. We try to transform it, try to mitigate it, but it's all happening after the fact that the data has already been created at the source, right? So one of the things that we're trying to focus is, yes, we have a lot of data that's siloed, that's coming from different processes, different systems. We need to address that so that we can get the right time to value and quick wins easily. But we also need to put together a framework which is enabling the data to be created at the right time, at the right process, from the right source as it's created, right? And not reacting to it and mitigating it using different technologies, app platforms, and other places. So the approach we've taken is aligning on a common standard that helps us with the right, classification, the right reference data library where all the global sites can map towards. So we can create a common definition, a common alignment of the data backbone, and then leverage that to support use cases over the years. The other thing that's a focus area for us in terms of the data journey is looking at, the first step is, once you have the right data structure, right data definition, the right data specification, and then you can get all the sources of information mapped to that, then how do we take that data and turn that into insights, right? And then how do we take that insights and then and then turn that into actionable advice, right? And we don't stop there, right? So it's not just visualizing and getting actionable insights. There's another step towards that. That actionable advice needs to hit the right person, and it has to go to the right workflow, right? Because you got to do something with that advice. That advice has to drive an action, whether it's repairing an equipment, whether it's taking an action to do something to mitigate a risk. And then the next step is, how do we go from taking an action, which is human dependent, but then automating, all right? So if you tie that back to our vision, working in a remote and autonomous facility, you have to have the data that gives the insight, gives the actionable advice, and then also goes into a workflow and automates it and creates the value that we need for the business. So that's sort of the approach we're following at Celanese. And I'll stop there. I can go on more on that, but happy to talk more.
Yeah, that was really good. Kind of want to touch a little bit deeper on some of the digital twin efforts you guys are doing. I know it's a little topic that's a little bit different, but it's very facility centric. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the digital transformation vision for Celanese is grounded in having a digital twin. And what really the digital twin is actually building a virtual representation of your physical asset and the behavior of the asset over its life cycle. It's really, and if you really unpack that a little bit, it's really about having the right data at the right time and the right place to make better decisions. And how you do that is building an actual representation of the actual state of your asset. That can only be achieved if your data is representing your asset in real time in a digital way for you to make the right decision. So what we're doing is, in that space, in the digital twin space, is building an ability for us to liberate data from all these sources, integrate it, contextualize it, so that we can have the actual representation of your facility whenever and wherever we need it, right? So the digital twin to us at Celanese is more than just an interactive 3D visualization platform, but really a place where you're integrating people, products, processes, and data from different IT and OT systems so that you can create a comprehensive and contextualized view of global Celanese operations that we as people can understand and make better decisions and optimize the operations in real time, right? So if I tie that back to a data strategy is having the right data structure that allows us to create the right data and manage that data from the source, and then the ability to have a platform or the capability that integrates all this data and creates a contextualized view of the process of your operations, and then give you the right insights in an actual state, real-time state of your facilities. And that's where we're driving it. And then the next step for us is going to be is, okay, now I have the actual representation of your facility. I need to get not only the insights, now let's convert that insights to actionable workflows that are automated. Let's leverage AI and machine learning technology to get to a simulated or a predicted state of your digital twin. And that's the journey that we're heading towards.
Good. One last I want to touch on Oleg and Raj talked about this as well. Either called the last mile or the first mile, depending on how you want to phrase it. But we're seeing a lot more robust cellular backhauls these days, especially with the proliferation of 5G and whatnot. How much of that is impacting kind of your digital strategies ahead in terms of the connected facilities?
Should I go?
Yeah, Ibrahim.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're working on is, right. So we can't see digital twin or digital strategy in the traditional context that you sit in a computer and you have your twin or you have your data, right? So one of the things that we're looking at is leveraging private 5G or 4G LTE connectivity to bring the right data at the right place and the right time to make the decision at the field, empowering our workforce to have the actual representation of their facilities in their hands at the facility or even outside of the facility. And the other thing that's important for us is how do we leverage connectivity in the field to also liberate data from sensors using either 5G and going from IoT directly to the cloud, and bring that seamlessly in the hands of the people to make the right decisions at the right time and at the right place. So that's one aspect of the connected worker strategy that we have in terms of a facility. But if you expand that a little bit more, is how do we create a digital representation of your entire manufacturing operations across the globe? How do we connect all the manufacturing sites in real time, whether it's in Asia, Europe, or in America, and leveraging that kind of connectivity through a platform? So within facilities, leveraging like 5G, 4G to bring connected worker, but then leveraging a connectivity across the globe through a platform that allows us to have the data at our fingertips across the globe whenever and wherever we need it. And that's embedded in our strategy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all your insights. Your journey with Celanese is very compelling and interesting, and I think there's a lot of parallels that we can all derive from that. Last but not least, Shin, tell us about what's happening in your world. I know you wanted to talk more specifically around data foundations, which is the heart of this matter in terms of really leveraging kind of our digital ROIs in terms of making sure that enterprises are foundationally ready.
Yep, sure. So I'm going to be sharing more on what does it really take to be enterprise ready in the data space, right? Because in this day and age where we often speak about data being the new oil, many organizations still face challenges in capitalizing the value of their data. For example, the data can be trapped in silos, or people have difficulty in accessing the data that they need, poor data quality, and even we observe cultural challenges, right, whereby there's a lack of data-driven culture within an organization. So we know that it is definitely mission critical for us to make the data available when and where it is required in the right format accessible for consumption with the right controls and entitlement, and having the right data with context so that it can be applied to use cases or pain points. And we do all of this so that everyone in the organization can be empowered to make informed decisions with agility. We can drive and sustain business performance and operational efficiency, and we can also unleash new growth opportunities through innovation. So that's basically just setting the context, right? And there are, of course, a few key themes of focus that I would like to share on. So first message I would like to talk about is how do we balance access with controls, right? Because the thing is that data is constantly being created across geographical boundaries and across the business value chain. But many organizations are still grappling with the issue of data transparency and accessibility. And in fact, this is one of the major hindrances for organizations to become fully data driven. So, what we see is that what organizations can do is to liberalize access to this data, right? And we really need to rethink on how we do things. For example, in the past, it may take up to 10, 20, 30 signatures just to get access to a particular data set, right? We may need to go to the plant manager, the plant head, the CEO of the plant. So the thing is that in this era, right, this will not work anymore. We should think about how do we liberalize data across so long as the data is not classified as secret or confidential data. And this can be supplemented with data entitlement by roles or by functions if the data is top classified data. So this way, we can strike that balance between securing our data and yet not being too rigid in sharing data within our organization. So that's the first message. And the second message I would like to share is maintaining trust and confidence with our data. So my fellow panelists have all shared on the importance of data quality, right? So that's actually really important because questionable data quality actually affects the data trustworthiness for business decision making. And this can range from incomplete data sets, inaccurate data, untimely data, or even invalid data because data has been manipulated. So this is where it is important to educate the organization on how data is everyone's responsibility. Because what we see is that sometimes people tend to think that data is just the responsibility of the enterprise data function, but that really is not the case, right? So data quality is everyone's responsibility, right? Data is everyone's responsibility. So we have to work very closely with the business, upskilling the business to understand how do they want to monitor the health of their data, how do they want to prevent, and also if there's a need to remediate so that the data actually meets the expected data quality acceptance level and everyone can feel more assured in using that data in making decisions. And of course, related to that, on how we bring trust to data is also how we secure our data, right? So our reliability on the cloud to store data in this day and age also calls for effective data governance at scale. Moving data processes to the cloud definitely adds that layer of complexity regarding security and access, while also ensuring compliance to the related regulatory requirements. So this can actually be addressed through ensuring that the right access is given according to the right entitlement within the data platform. And this is actually the first step in ensuring that the data is properly tagged and categorized according to its sensitivity. And then from these security classifications, we can then define access to be given to each group of users via the activity of data entitlement mapping. So this is really important, right? So that at the end of the day, we ensure that data security is not compromised. Okay. And then the next area I want to share is, and I cannot emphasize enough on the importance of having that unified data platform, right? Because we see that without this, organizations tend to have challenges in liberalizing the right data at the right time to the right users. And with poor data discoverability, because there's then a heavy reliance on specialized IT teams to connect to the right data sources, and not to mention potentially exposing the organization's data to further risks and breaches due to non-standardized governance and technical controls. So the question is, how do we do this in an efficient manner, in a scalable manner, and in an agile manner so that trusted data can be made available, accessible, applied, and action upon? So a robust data platform and a single data platform is where we see as really important, right? Because we can ingest and process data coming from various sources, be it structured, semi-structured or unstructured, be it from databases such as SAP or even other data platforms within the organization, IoT data, and even external data sets that we subscribe to. So, and depending, of course, on the use cases, data can be ingested at different frequencies, and the data platform must be able to cater for that, right? Be it real-time ingestion, near real-time, or even batch ingestion. And also, as the unified data platform will be powering up the needs of advanced analytics, all these good AI ML models that have been developed by the data science community also needs to be reusable, right? So a feature marketplace, a model marketplace. So these are all important capabilities within the data platform so that we can continuously liberate and reuse these models across the organization. And also, and if you are wondering about where do I start, given that there's so much data created on a daily basis and also over the years, one very important principle to take note of is the data platform is actually not a dumping ground, right? This has been touched on earlier as well in this session, right? We need to anchor on what data really matters to our organization and where it will bring further value. And value can come in various contexts, right? Such as better HSS, higher productivity, production optimization, or even better management of the environment and carbon emission, and ensure that the ability for us to forecast based on the trends that we see in the past. And of course, the last key message I want to share here and is about data literacy, right? Because underpinning a successful data-driven organization is actually a strong data literate workforce with the fluency to create value from data. And in fact, according to many statistics out there, right, one that I can share is from the International Data Corporation. So we see that even spending on big data and analytics products is supposed to surpass over 200 million, right? But 50% of the organizations still lack the data literacy and the AI skills to achieve business value. So data literacy means the organization needs to be able to work with data, to understand data, to manage the data, and to be able to read the data, right? Critically assessing it and also finding meaning to the data so that we can gain actionable insights from it and we can act upon it. So the thing is this skill is definitely not confined to just the data scientists or data analysts, right? In fact, everyone in the organization needs to put data to use and uncover new insights and opportunities. So it's not just about collecting data. And of course, various ways we can create that pervasive data literate culture within organization, right? We can have a general data awareness program so that people understand the basic analytical capabilities and know-how that they can apply it on their day-to-day life. We also see the importance of having a data community of practice so that everyone can come together and connect, share lessons learned. So at the end of the day, everyone in the organization needs to be equipped with these fundamentals so that we can truly be able to monetize data across the organization. Over to you.
That was really good, Yushin. Couple takeaways. So, I mean, data quality seems to be kind of this recurring theme, and I love what you said about data quality being everybody's responsibility. It's not just one person's job from the data foundations or a data scientist. It's really truly everybody's responsibility at the enterprise level, and I would also say with all your technology partnerships. So it's really this one team concept that's driving value ahead. Quick question I have regarding your role. How have things changed over the last few years in terms of how you work with your business partners and data scientists from like a change management perspective in terms of making sure that everybody's on the same page with the data?
Yeah, thanks. That is a great question because I didn't touch on that point earlier, but it is actually really, really important, right? Because ultimately the data function is never a standalone one because whilst as an organizational setup, we are entrusted to orchestrate, to strategize on the data governance, data delivery, master data management, data architecture, data engineering, and the likes, in order to institutionalize that data center of excellence. But the thing is that for us to really ensure that the data is designed, built, and maintained right to power up the digital journey for the organization, we need to actually work very collaboratively with the business. because they are the ones who actually understand the pain points and the context of the data. So just to share with you, for us as well, when we deliver data initiatives, we actually make sure that the data function don't work in silo, right? It's a conscious decision to ensure that the business is part of our pod-like structure, so that it taps into the diverse skill sets of and their deep knowledge on the data management practices, technical know-how, and also functional domain expertise. Because the business, especially, they are the ones who knows the data best, right? They know the context of the data. So working with them in that very seamless tight collaboration is very critical. And also just to share in the space of data governance as well, right? So data governance is not just a standalone function, right? Again, we see that the data stewards are the extended arm of our data governance team, right? And the data stewards come from the business themselves, right? And this approach and this operating model is very critical because they are the eyes and ears on the ground, right? So while we cascade key policies or key initiatives onto them, they will work together with also the relevant business focus to ensure that this is properly embedded. And also because they're on the ground, then they can then feedback to us, right? What doesn't work, what works, and then we can have this iterative approach. So yeah, this is how we work very closely with the business to ultimately deliver the maximum value for the organization.
Thank you for adding that additional insight, Yushin. That was really good. Thanks so much for everything. I think we can turn over to the Q&A for a second. I know one area that we probably didn't discuss a whole lot of, and it's a foundational underpinning of this entire conversation, is really around cybersecurity. Anybody want to touch on cybersecurity at all? Oleg or Raj?
Well, I mean, what I can say, and I think that all the providers today have a clear understanding. It was said earlier on that data is valuable, and the data is really is extremely expensive. So you want your data to be secure, but it's not just about cybersecurity as well. It's also about the access and who has access to what within your company, who has access to modify the data, to work with the data, just to see it. So it's not just purely the security of the data, but it's also how the access control, authorization, and some of the platforms do better than others. But it's extremely important that it's safe. There's also the discussion about hybrid clouds. There's some issues. I mean, if we talk to Yishin in Malaysia, in Indonesia, and various places, the data need to be on premise. Sometimes the data can't be exported, which puts some stress on the data provider on how to work with data in the clouds when some of the solution they have is worldwide. So, I mean, all these aspects are extremely important, and I think it's not being taken as a given. So you need to really work with your platform and the data provider to really be sure they understand the value of the data and the risk on the cybersecurity, certainly.
Thank you, Oleg. That was really impactful, and I agree with that. I think from a tech transformation perspective, the cybersecurity piece is the first thing we take a look at in addressing those gaps before we push anything forward. So thank you all for that. I think that kind of concludes our session. It was really, really great seeing you guys and listening to all your insights.
Thanks very much, Udayan. I really, as you sort of do when you talk about the data conundrum, so many more things unravel. So you have, you talk about contextualization, interoperability, then you talk about access, which I think Yushin was talking about a lot towards the end of the session. And I think access is a big thing because what you have, especially within oil and energy, downstream as well as upstream, is the accessibility of data. How many approvals or signatures you need to get access to a data pile or data system. And I think that needs to change. And that's really down to the company more than a technology. So I think some of it's related to change management, structural, hierarchical structure, and how you actually create an ecosystem that embraces shared data. And I think that's very difficult to do. I think what Ibrahim said as well about forming the right data backbone is absolutely paramount. And I think you need to do that. And who accesses what and decisions need to be made very quickly. And also, how do we create the right data definition? How do we do that? It's not easy, really isn't easy, especially listening into sessions like this. So it's difficult. And I think it's good to have these discussions. We had some brilliant people on that session. I think that just amplifies, the problems that you have with data and how you need to make it accessible to all to progress. So thank you, Udayan, brilliantly moderated, fantastic session. We're now moving on to our next presentation case study, which is from Vuvio. They're an innovation partner for the event. It's titled The Digital Twin of the Person. Fantastic title, actually. And it's presented by Jamie Aguilera, founder and CEO of Vuvio Technologies. So Jamie, over to you.